Question 1. Market research demonstrates that clear communication is vital for efficient mail processing. You receive a written instruction from your supervisor regarding the handling of a specific type of package. The instruction states, ensure all Priority Express items are expedited. While you understand the general concept of expedited, the instruction lacks specific details on what constitutes expedited in this context beyond the standard Priority Express service. Which of the following represents the most appropriate interpretation and action based on Postal Service guidelines? Option A. Place the Priority Express items in a separate bin and wait for further instructions, as the ambiguity of expedited requires additional guidance. Option B. Proceed with the standard handling procedures for Priority Express mail, as the term expedited is inherent to that service level. Option C. Consult the Postal Operations Manual (POM) and any relevant internal directives for specific protocols on expediting Priority Express items beyond their standard service, and seek clarification from your supervisor if the documentation is unclear. Option D. Assume expedited means to personally carry the packages to the next processing stage, bypassing normal conveyor belts. Correct answer is B. Proceed with the standard handling procedures for Priority Express mail, as the term expedited is inherent to that service level. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in postal operations, interpreting and acting upon written instructions that may contain ambiguities or require a nuanced understanding of established procedures. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that actions taken are accurate, efficient, and compliant with the Postal Service's operational guidelines, thereby maintaining service quality and preventing errors. Careful judgment is required to discern the most appropriate course of action when instructions are not perfectly clear. The correct approach involves a systematic process of understanding the core intent of the instruction, cross-referencing it with established Postal Service procedures and guidelines, and seeking clarification if any doubt remains. This ensures that the action taken is not only responsive to the written directive, but also aligns with the broader regulatory framework governing postal operations. Specifically, adherence to the Postal Operations Manual (POM) and any relevant internal directives is paramount. The Postal Service relies on its employees to interpret and execute instructions accurately to maintain the integrity of mail processing and delivery. An incorrect approach would be to make assumptions about the meaning of the instruction without verifying its intent against official guidelines. This could lead to misinterpretation, resulting in incorrect sorting, misdelivery, or failure to follow proper handling procedures, which directly violates the operational standards set forth by the Postal Service. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the instruction due to perceived ambiguity, which is a failure to perform assigned duties and can disrupt workflow. Finally, acting solely on personal interpretation without consulting official resources or seeking clarification is a significant professional failing, as it bypasses the established system of checks and balances designed to ensure accuracy and compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes understanding, verification, and if necessary, clarification. This involves 1. Reading the instruction carefully to grasp its literal meaning. 2. Considering the context of the instruction within the overall task or process. 3. Consulting relevant official documentation, e.g., POM handbooks, bulletins, to confirm understanding and identify any specific procedures related to the instruction. 4. If ambiguity persists after consulting documentation, seeking clarification from a supervisor or designated point of contact. 5. Executing the instruction accurately based on confirmed understanding. Question 2. Process analysis reveals that a postal employee encounters a mail piece with a slightly smudged street number that, upon initial visual inspection, could plausibly be interpreted as two different valid street numbers on the same block. The employee is under pressure to maintain delivery speed. Which of the following actions best adheres to the principles of address matching and delivery sequencing as outlined by Postal Service Exam 473? Option A. Discard the mail piece as undeliverable due to the illegible address, without attempting any further verification. Option B. Deliver the mail piece to the first of the two plausible street numbers encountered on the route, assuming it is the intended destination. Option C. Attempt to deliver the mail piece to the address that appears to be the most likely intended recipient based on the surrounding mail and the general appearance of the property, without further verification. Option D. Hold the mail piece and attempt to obtain clarification from a supervisor or consult official postal records to confirm the correct street number before proceeding with delivery. The correct answer is C. Attempt to deliver the mail piece to the address that appears to be the most likely intended recipient based on the surrounding mail and the general appearance of the property, without further verification. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a postal employee to balance the immediate need for efficient delivery with the absolute requirement for accurate address matching and sequencing, as dictated by Postal Service Exam 473 guidelines. Failure to adhere to these standards can lead to misdeliveries, customer complaints, and operational inefficiencies, all of which undermine public trust and the integrity of postal services. The core of the challenge lies in making a judgment call when faced with a slight discrepancy that could either be a minor anomaly or a significant error. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established procedures for address matching and delivery sequencing. This means meticulously verifying the address against official records and ensuring the mail piece is placed in the correct sequence for delivery based on the established route. This approach is right because it directly aligns with the fundamental principles of postal operations, as outlined in the Postal Service Exam 473. The regulations emphasize accuracy and adherence to established routes to ensure mail reaches its intended recipient efficiently and without error. Prioritizing procedural correctness over speed in ambiguous situations is a cornerstone of reliable postal service. An incorrect approach that involves making an assumption about the address and proceeding with delivery based on that assumption is professionally unacceptable. It fails to meet the regulatory requirement for accurate address matching. It introduces a significant risk of misdelivery, which is a direct violation of the Postal Service's duty to deliver mail to the correct address. Another incorrect approach, which is to set the mail piece aside indefinitely without proper re-verification or reporting, is also professionally flawed. While it avoids immediate misdelivery, it creates an operational backlog and fails to fulfill the Postal Service's obligation to deliver mail in a timely manner. This inaction can lead to delays and potential loss of mail, impacting both the customer and the efficiency of the postal system. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the established procedures and regulations. When faced with ambiguity, the framework dictates a pause to re-verify information against official sources. If verification is not immediately possible or the discrepancy remains, the next step is to follow established protocols for handling such situations, which may involve seeking clarification or escalating the issue. The guiding principle should always be to uphold accuracy and adherence to regulations, even if it means a slight delay, rather than risking a procedural error with potentially negative consequences. Question 3. The assessment process reveals that a batch of mail contains several addresses with inconsistent formatting. One address reads 123 Main Street, Apt 4B, Anytown, Ca 90210. Another is listed as 456 Oak Ave, Suite 10, Otherville, NY 10001. A third appears as 789 Pine RDG, Villagetown, TX 75001. Which of the following represents the most accurate and compliant approach to standardizing these addresses according to Postal Service guidelines? Option A. Correct street to St. Ave to Ave and RDG to RDG, ensuring proper capitalization and punctuation for all elements, including the apartment and suite numbers. Option B. Abbreviate street to St. Avenue to Ave and Ridge to RDG, as these are commonly recognized. Option C. Leave the addresses as they are, assuming they are understandable to postal workers and the recipient. Option D. Prioritize correcting only the street type abbreviations and leave apartment/suite numbers and city/state/ZIP code formatting as is to save time. Correct answer is A. Correct street to St. Ave to Ave and RDG to RDG, ensuring proper capitalization and punctuation for all elements, including the apartment and suite numbers. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires meticulous attention to detail and strict adherence to established postal addressing standards, which are critical for efficient mail sorting and delivery. Failure to standardize addresses can lead to misdeliveries, delays, and increased operational costs for the Postal Service. The Postal Service Exam 473 specifically tests an applicant's ability to apply these standards accurately. The correct approach involves systematically identifying and correcting deviations from the official postal service addressing guidelines. This includes standardizing abbreviations, e.g., street to cent, avenue to ave, ensuring correct capitalization and applying proper punctuation. This approach is right because it directly aligns with the core objective of address standardization, as mandated by postal service regulations and operational procedures, ensuring that mail can be processed and delivered without ambiguity or error. The Postal Service relies on these standardized formats for automated sorting equipment and for clear guidance to postal workers. An incorrect approach that involves making subjective judgments about what looks right or is commonly understood by recipients fails to adhere to the official standards. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the established rules designed for universal application and efficiency. Another incorrect approach, such as leaving abbreviations as they are if they are commonly recognized, is also a failure. While a human might understand cent versus street, automated systems may not, or the variation could lead to inconsistencies in data entry and processing. This undermines the integrity of the postal services addressing database and operational efficiency. A further incorrect approach, like prioritizing speed over accuracy and correction, is a significant operational and ethical failure. The Postal Service's mandate includes reliable and accurate delivery, which is directly compromised by rushed or incomplete standardization. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Postal Service's Domestic Mail Manual, DMM, or any other relevant official USPS publications that detail addressing standards. When presented with an address, the professional should first identify any potential issues. Incorrect abbreviations, missing punctuation, improper capitalization, or non-standard formatting. Then, they should consult the official USPS guidelines to determine the correct standardized form for each element of the address. The correction should be made precisely according to these guidelines, ensuring consistency and compliance. If unsure about a specific abbreviation or format, the professional should refer to the official USPS resources rather than relying on assumptions or common usage. Question 4. The control framework reveals that a piece of mail has been returned to the processing facility with the marking NICSE and a specific address correction code indicating forwarding order expired. What is the correct procedure for handling this mail piece according to Postal Service Exam 473 guidelines? Option A. Return the mail piece to the sender as undeliverable, noting that the forwarding order has expired. Option B. Forward the mail piece to the last known forwarding address, even though the order has expired. Option C. Discard the mail piece as it is no longer deliverable. Option D. Attempt to deliver the mail piece to the original address, assuming the recipient may have returned. The correct answer is A. Return the mail piece to the sender as undeliverable, noting that the forwarding order has expired. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the postal employee to interpret and apply specific address correction codes accurately, which directly impacts the delivery of mail and customer satisfaction. Misinterpreting these codes can lead to delayed mail, returned mail, or even misdelivery, all of which have operational and reputational consequences for the Postal Service. The employee must exercise careful judgment to ensure the correct action is taken based on the provided code, adhering strictly to established procedures. The correct approach involves accurately identifying the address correction code provided on the mail piece and performing the action specified by that code. This aligns with Postal Service regulations and guidelines for handling mail that cannot be delivered as addressed. For example, if the code indicates a forwarding order is on file, the employee must ensure the mail is forwarded to the new address. This adherence to established procedures is critical for maintaining the integrity and efficiency of the mail system, as outlined in the Postal Operations Manual (POM) and other relevant USPS directives. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the address correction code and attempt delivery to the original address, or to assume the meaning of the code without consulting the official USPS guidelines. Ignoring the code violates the directive to process mail according to its markings and can lead to mail being undeliverable, returned to sender unnecessarily, or delayed. Assuming the meaning of a code without verification is a failure of due diligence and can result in incorrect actions being taken, such as forwarding mail when no forwarding order exists or discarding mail that should be returned. Both actions undermine the established processes designed to ensure mail reaches its intended recipient or is returned appropriately. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes accuracy and adherence to established procedures. This involves 1. Recognizing the presence of an address correction code. 2. Consulting official USPS resources, like the POM or internal training materials, to understand the specific meaning of the code. 3. Executing the action dictated by the code precisely. 4. If ambiguity exists, seeking clarification from a supervisor or designated authority rather than making an assumption. This systematic approach ensures compliance with regulations and promotes efficient mail handling. Question 5. Consider a scenario where a postal carrier is delivering mail to a residential address. The carrier has a piece of mail addressed to 123 Main Street, Anytown, USA. Upon arriving at the location, the carrier observes a house that appears to be a valid residence, but the delivery point validation, DPV data for 123 Main Street, indicates that it is not a recognized delivery point within the USP system. What is the most appropriate action for the postal carrier to take in this situation, according to USP's guidelines for Exam 473? Option A. Refrain from delivering the mail to the observed residence and follow the established USP's procedures for handling mail addressed to a location not validated by DPV data. Option B. Attempt to deliver the mail to the observed residence and make a note to submit an address correction request to the USPS for future deliveries. Option C. Return the mail to the sender as undeliverable, as the DPV data explicitly states it is not a recognized delivery point. Option D. Deliver the mail to the observed residence, assuming the DPV data is incorrect and the physical location is a valid delivery point. Correct answer is D. Deliver the mail to the observed residence, assuming the DPV data is incorrect and the physical location is a valid delivery point. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a postal employee to balance the need for efficient mail delivery with the absolute requirement of ensuring accurate address information, as mandated by the United States Postal Service, USPS, for the Exam 473. The integrity of the mail system relies on the accuracy of delivery points. Failure to properly validate addresses can lead to misdelivered mail, returned mail, and ultimately, a breakdown in customer trust and service. Careful judgment is required to interpret DPV data in a practical, on-the-ground delivery context. The correct approach involves utilizing the delivery point validation, DPV data provided by the USPS to confirm that a specific address is recognized as a valid, deliverable location within the postal system. This aligns directly with USPS regulations and guidelines for mail carriers, emphasizing the importance of accurate address information for efficient and reliable mail delivery. By cross-referencing the physical address with the DPV data, the carrier ensures that mail is directed to an established delivery point, thereby upholding the USPS commitment to service standards and preventing potential delivery errors. This proactive validation is a core component of maintaining the accuracy and efficiency of the postal network. An incorrect approach would be to assume the address is valid simply because mail has been delivered there previously without DPV confirmation. This fails to adhere to the USPS directive to use DPV data for validation, potentially perpetuating an inaccurate address record and risking future misdeliveries. Another incorrect approach is to ignore DPV data if it conflicts with the physical appearance of the address, prioritizing personal observation over official system data. This bypasses a critical validation step designed to ensure accuracy and can lead to mail being sent to non-existent or incorrect delivery points. Finally, an incorrect approach is to attempt to manually correct DPV data based on assumptions without following established USPS procedures for address correction. This undermines the systematic validation process and can introduce further inaccuracies. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to USPS regulations and guidelines. This involves understanding the purpose and application of DPV data. When faced with a discrepancy, the professional should first consult the DPV data. If the DPV data indicates the address is not valid, the professional should follow established USPS procedures for reporting and correcting address information, rather than making unilateral decisions or ignoring the data. This ensures that all address validations are conducted systematically and accurately, maintaining the integrity of the postal system. Question 6. Market research demonstrates that customers sometimes provide incomplete or slightly inaccurate mailing addresses, As a Postal Service employee, you are presented with the following address for a package: 123 Main Street, Anytown, Ca 90210. Upon initial review, you notice that Main Street is a very common street name, and there are multiple 123 Main Street addresses within the broader Anytown area, but the specific ZIP code provided, 90210, is for a different, albeit nearby, city. Which of the following approaches best reflects the required address verification process? Option A. Flag the address as invalid due to the discrepancy between the stated city Anytown and the provided ZIP code 90210, which belongs to a different city, and return it for correction. Option B. Assume the address is valid because 123 Main Street and Anytown, Ca are present, and the ZIP code is close to the intended area. Option C. Attempt to find a 123 Main Street within the 90210 ZIP code, assuming the city name provided is incorrect. Option D. Forward the package to the 123 Main Street in Anytown and hope it reaches the correct recipient. The correct answer is B. Assume the address is valid because 123 Main Street and Anytown, Ca are present, and the ZIP code is close to the intended area. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because accurately identifying valid and invalid addresses is fundamental to the efficient and reliable delivery of mail. Errors in address verification can lead to misdelivered mail, returned mail, increased operational costs due to rerouting or attempts, and customer dissatisfaction. The Postal Service Exam 473E, while not explicitly detailing specific USPS regulations in this context for the exam itself, operates under the overarching principles of the United States Postal Service's commitment to accurate mail delivery. Therefore, the decision-making process must prioritize adherence to established postal standards for address validity, even when faced with ambiguous or incomplete information. The correct approach involves systematically checking the provided address against recognized postal databases and standards. This means verifying each component of the address: street name, number, city, state, and ZIP code for accuracy and completeness. If any part of the address is missing, misspelled, or does not correspond to a recognized postal delivery point, it should be flagged as invalid. This systematic verification ensures that mail is directed to legitimate delivery points, minimizing the risk of errors and upholding the integrity of the postal system. This aligns with the implicit regulatory framework of the USPS, which mandates accurate addressing for efficient mail processing and delivery. An incorrect approach would be to assume an address is valid based on partial information or a general resemblance to a known address. For instance, accepting an address with a misspelled street name without attempting to verify it against a postal directory is a failure. This bypasses the established process for ensuring address accuracy and could lead to mail being sent to the wrong location. Similarly, accepting an address with a missing ZIP code or an incorrect city/state combination without attempting to correct or flag it demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the standards required for proper mail routing. These actions violate the implicit expectation of thoroughness and accuracy inherent in postal operations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes verification and accuracy. When presented with an address, the first step is to attempt to verify its components against available postal resources. If discrepancies are found, the next step is to determine if the discrepancy is minor and correctable, e.g., a common abbreviation, or significant enough to render the address invalid. If the address cannot be verified or corrected through standard procedures, it should be treated as invalid. This systematic, rule-based approach, grounded in the principles of accurate mail delivery, ensures consistent and reliable service. Question 7. Benchmark analysis indicates that a postal facility is experiencing an increase in mail volume and a higher rate of misdirected mail. To address these issues, the facility manager is considering upgrading their address sorting equipment. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the operational requirements and efficiency goals of the Postal Service? Option A. Opt for an address sorting machine that offers a wide range of customization options, even if it requires significant modifications to integrate with current mail processing workflows. Option B. Choose an address sorting machine that is specifically designed for high-volume, accurate sorting of diverse mail types and can integrate with existing tracking systems. Option C. Purchase an older model address sorting machine that has a proven track record but lacks modern technological features for reading advanced barcodes. Option D. Select the most cost-effective address sorting machine available, regardless of its specific sorting accuracy or throughput capabilities. Correct answer is D. Select the most cost-effective address sorting machine available, regardless of its specific sorting accuracy or throughput capabilities. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an understanding of how mail processing equipment directly impacts operational efficiency and compliance with Postal Service standards, specifically concerning address sorting accuracy. The Postal Service Exam 473E focuses on practical knowledge relevant to postal operations, and understanding the capabilities and limitations of address sorting equipment is crucial for maintaining service quality and minimizing errors. Careful judgment is required to select the most appropriate equipment based on the specific needs and constraints of a given postal facility. The correct approach involves selecting equipment that is designed for high-volume, accurate address sorting, capable of reading various mail formats and conditions, and integrates effectively with other mail processing systems. This aligns with the Postal Service's mandate to provide efficient and reliable mail delivery, as outlined in its operational guidelines and performance standards. Utilizing equipment that meets these criteria ensures that mail is sorted correctly and promptly, reducing the likelihood of misdelivery or delays, which are key performance indicators for postal operations. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize equipment solely based on its initial cost without considering its sorting accuracy or throughput capabilities. This fails to meet the operational requirements for efficient mail processing and could lead to increased manual sorting, higher error rates, and ultimately, a decline in service quality, violating the Postal Service's commitment to timely and accurate mail handling. Another incorrect approach is to select equipment that is outdated or lacks the necessary technological features to handle modern mail formats, such as various envelope sizes and barcode types. This would result in a bottleneck in the sorting process, increased manual intervention, and a higher probability of sorting errors, directly contradicting the Postal Service's objectives for automated mail processing and efficiency. Finally, choosing equipment that does not integrate well with existing postal infrastructure, such as tracking systems or downstream processing machines, would create operational inefficiencies and hinder the smooth flow of mail. This lack of interoperability would lead to delays and increased labor costs, undermining the overall effectiveness of the mail processing operation and failing to adhere to the Postal Service's standards for integrated systems. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of operational needs, including mail volume, types of mail processed, and required sorting accuracy. This assessment should then be matched against the technical specifications and performance capabilities of available mail processing equipment. Consideration should also be given to the equipment's reliability, maintenance requirements, and its ability to integrate with existing systems. Adherence to Postal Service guidelines and performance metrics should be the primary driver in the selection process, ensuring that the chosen equipment contributes to the overall efficiency and effectiveness of mail delivery. Question 8. Compliance review shows that a mail piece has a return address clearly printed in the upper left corner and a handwritten recipient name and partial street address in the center of the mail piece, with no visible ZIP code. Which approach best aligns with Postal Service guidelines for address block identification on this mail piece? Option A. Identify the handwritten information in the center as the primary address block and attempt to infer the complete street address and ZIP code based on context. Option B. Prioritize the clearly printed return address as the primary address for delivery. Option C. Focus on locating and interpreting the standard address block, typically found in the lower right quadrant, and if incomplete, flag the mail piece for further review according to established procedures. Option D. Treat the handwritten name and partial street address as the primary address block and proceed with delivery to the closest known address matching the partial information. The correct answer is A. Identify the handwritten information in the center as the primary address block and attempt to infer the complete street address and ZIP code based on context. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the accurate identification and interpretation of address blocks are fundamental to the efficient and correct processing of mail. Errors in this area can lead to misdelivery, delays, and increased operational costs for the Postal Service. The Postal Service Exam 473 specifically tests an applicant's ability to understand and apply these core operational principles. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between valid address information and extraneous markings or incomplete data. The correct approach involves meticulously examining the mail piece to locate the primary address block, which typically contains the recipient's name, street address, city, state, and ZIP code. This block is usually positioned in the lower right quadrant of the mail piece. The Postal Service relies on standardized formats and clear identification of this block for automated sorting and delivery. Adhering to these established guidelines ensures that mail is processed according to Postal Service regulations and operational procedures, which are implicitly tested in the 473 exam. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the sender's address would be a failure because the sender's address is for return purposes and does not dictate the primary delivery destination. This directly violates the fundamental purpose of address block identification. Another incorrect approach, which involves prioritizing any legible text on the mail piece over the standard address block location, is also a failure. This disregards the established conventions for mail processing and can lead to misinterpretation of delivery instructions, potentially causing mail to be misrouted or undeliverable. Finally, an approach that attempts to guess the intended address when the primary address block is obscured or incomplete is a significant failure. This introduces an unacceptable level of subjectivity and error into a process that requires objective adherence to established standards. Such guesswork is not supported by Postal Service regulations and undermines the reliability of the mail delivery system. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established Postal Service guidelines for address block identification. This involves a systematic scan of the mail piece, looking for the standardized address block in its expected location. If the primary address block is unclear, the next step should be to consult internal Postal Service resources or supervisors for clarification, rather than making assumptions or prioritizing non-essential information. Question 9. Operational review demonstrates that a postal employee encounters a package that is unusually heavy for its size, has no return address, and emits a faint, unusual odor. The employee recalls that Postal Service Exam 473 training emphasized specific protocols for handling suspicious items. What is the most appropriate immediate action based on these recalled regulations? Option A. Place the package in a designated secure area and notify a supervisor. Option B. Discard the package in the nearest waste receptacle. Option C. Attempt to locate the sender by searching internal postal databases. Option D. Immediately open the package to identify its contents and sender. Correct answer is D. Immediately open the package to identify its contents and sender. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires immediate adherence to established postal regulations to ensure the integrity of mail processing and customer trust. The postal employee must recall specific guidelines regarding the handling of suspicious packages without causing undue alarm or compromising security. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the need for prompt action with the requirement to follow precise, predefined procedures. The correct approach involves recognizing the described package as potentially hazardous and initiating the established protocol for suspicious mail. This protocol, as outlined in Postal Service Exam 473 relevant regulations, mandates immediate notification of a supervisor and isolation of the item. This is the correct professional practice because it directly aligns with the Postal Service's commitment to employee and public safety, as well as the security of the mail. By following the prescribed steps, the employee ensures that trained personnel handle the situation, minimizing risk and adhering to the strict guidelines designed to address such contingencies. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the package as a minor inconvenience or to attempt to investigate it further independently. Dismissing the package as a minor inconvenience fails to acknowledge the potential risks associated with unknown substances or devices, violating the fundamental safety regulations designed to protect against such threats. Attempting to investigate independently is a critical regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses the chain of command and the specialized training required for handling hazardous materials. This action could expose the employee and others to danger and could interfere with official security procedures, potentially compromising an investigation or response. Another incorrect approach would be to simply discard the package without proper notification or isolation. This is a severe regulatory failure, as it disregards the established procedures for handling potentially dangerous items, leaving the item unaccounted for and potentially allowing a threat to go unaddressed. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a rapid assessment of the situation against known regulatory frameworks. When faced with an anomaly that could potentially violate safety or security protocols, the first step is to recall the relevant regulations. If unsure, the immediate next step is to consult with a supervisor or designated authority. The principle of when in doubt, report it is paramount. Professionals must prioritize adherence to established procedures over personal judgment, especially when safety and security are at stake. Question 10. The control framework reveals that the Postal Service is considering the implementation of new automated sorting machines to increase efficiency. Which approach best addresses the potential consequences of this technological integration on current operations and employee roles? Option A. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to evaluate changes in processing times, error rates, training needs, and customer service. Option B. Implement the new machines quickly to gain a competitive advantage, addressing any issues as they arise. Option C. Prioritize immediate cost reductions by deploying the machines with minimal disruption to existing workflows. Option D. Focus solely on the technical specifications and capabilities of the new sorting machines. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough impact assessment to evaluate changes in processing times, error rates, training needs, and customer service. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing operational efficiency with the integrity of postal services, specifically concerning the impact of new technology on established processes. The Postal Service Exam 473 syllabus emphasizes an impact assessment approach, which is crucial for understanding the ramifications of changes before they are implemented. Careful judgment is required to ensure that technological advancements do not compromise service quality, security, or employee roles without proper consideration and mitigation strategies. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive impact assessment. This means systematically evaluating how the introduction of automated sorting machines will affect mail processing times, the potential for errors, the need for retraining existing staff, and the overall customer experience. This approach is justified by the Postal Service's commitment to reliable and efficient mail delivery, as outlined in its operational guidelines and public service obligations. A thorough impact assessment ensures that decisions are data-driven and consider all stakeholders, aligning with the principles of responsible innovation and service continuity. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize immediate cost savings without a full understanding of the consequences. This could lead to unforeseen operational disruptions, increased error rates, and negative impacts on employee morale and job security, potentially violating implicit service standards and public trust. Another incorrect approach is to implement the technology without adequate employee training. This not only reduces the effectiveness of the new system, but also creates a stressful and potentially unsafe work environment, failing to uphold the Postal Service's duty of care to its employees. Finally, focusing solely on the technical aspects of the machines, while neglecting the human element and customer service implications, would be a flawed strategy. As postal services are fundamentally about people and communication, professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with identifying the proposed change. Next, they must define the scope of the impact assessment, considering operational, financial, human resources, and customer service dimensions. This is followed by data gathering and analysis to quantify potential impacts. Based on this analysis, mitigation strategies and contingency plans are developed. Finally, a recommendation is made, supported by evidence, to either proceed with the change, modify it, or reject it, ensuring that all decisions are aligned with the Postal Service's mission and regulatory responsibilities. Question 11. Quality control measures reveal that a postal employee, when asked to recall the specific procedure for handling a certified mail package with a return receipt requested, hesitates and provides an incomplete set of steps. The employee then proceeds with the delivery based on their partial recollection, without consulting the official Postal Service manual. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and professionally responsible course of action for the employee in this situation? Option A. Ask a nearby colleague for a quick reminder of the procedure, even if the colleague is also busy, to expedite the process. Option B. Proceed with the delivery as planned, assuming the general steps are correct and that any minor omissions will not significantly impact the outcome. Option C. Immediately stop the delivery process, retrieve the official Postal Service Domestic Mail Manual, DMM, or relevant digital resource, and review the exact procedure for certified mail with return receipt before proceeding. Option D. Make a note to review the procedure later that day and proceed with the delivery based on the current understanding to avoid delaying service. The correct answer is C. Immediately stop the delivery process, retrieve the official Postal Service Domestic Mail Manual, DMM, or relevant digital resource, and review the exact procedure for certified mail with return receipt before proceeding. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it directly impacts the integrity and efficiency of postal operations. The ability to accurately recall names, addresses, and establish procedures is fundamental to providing reliable service. A lapse in these memorization skills can lead to misdelivered mail, delayed deliveries, and potential security risks, all of which erode public trust and violate the Postal Service's commitment to service excellence. The challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate problem solving with the long-term requirement for consistent adherence to memorized information. The correct approach involves proactively employing proven memorization techniques and seeking clarification when unsure. This demonstrates a commitment to accuracy and a willingness to uphold established procedures, which are critical for maintaining operational integrity. Specifically, utilizing mnemonic devices, spaced repetition, and active recall for names, addresses, and procedural steps ensures that information is not only learned but also retained and readily accessible. When faced with uncertainty, immediately consulting official Postal Service handbooks, digital resources, or experienced colleagues for clarification is the ethically sound and procedurally correct action. This aligns with the Postal Service's emphasis on accuracy, efficiency, and adherence to regulations designed to ensure proper mail handling and customer service. An incorrect approach of guessing or relying on incomplete recall is professionally unacceptable. Guessing an address or a procedure, even with good intentions, directly violates the Postal Service's mandate for accuracy and can lead to significant errors, such as misdelivery of sensitive mail or incorrect processing of packages. This undermines the trust placed in postal employees and can have legal and financial repercussions for the organization. Another incorrect approach of avoiding seeking help or admitting uncertainty is also detrimental. This behavior suggests a lack of accountability and a disregard for the importance of correct information. It can perpetuate errors and create a culture where accuracy is not prioritized, directly contravening the Postal Service's operational standards and ethical obligations to its customers and the public. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, assess the situation and identify the specific information that needs to be recalled. Second, attempt to access the memorized information using established techniques. Third, if there is any doubt or uncertainty, immediately pause and consult reliable official Postal Service resources or seek guidance from a supervisor or experienced colleague. Fourth, document any necessary corrections or new information learned to reinforce memorization. This systematic process ensures that decisions are based on accurate information and adherence to established protocols, thereby upholding professional standards and operational integrity. Question 12. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a postal employee, while processing a batch of outgoing international mail, mistakenly applied domestic postage rates to all items due to a momentary lapse in concentration. The employee realizes this error after the mail has been sorted, but before it has been dispatched to the international mail facility. What is the most appropriate course of action to identify and correct this error according to Postal Service Exam 473 guidelines? Option A. Inform a colleague about the mistake and ask them to handle the correction to avoid personal accountability. Option B. Attempt to manually adjust the postage on the already sorted mail without re-verifying the international rates, hoping to avoid further delays. Option C. Continue with the dispatch of the mail to meet the daily processing quota and address the postage discrepancy later if it is flagged. Option D. Immediately halt the dispatch of the affected mail. Reevaluate each item to apply the correct international postage, and then proceed with dispatch. The correct answer is D. Immediately halt the dispatch of the affected mail. Reevaluate each item to apply the correct international postage, and then proceed with dispatch. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a postal employee to identify and rectify an error in their own work, which can be difficult due to potential biases or a desire to avoid admitting a mistake. Pressure to meet delivery targets can also create a conflict, potentially leading to overlooking errors. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with accuracy and adherence to established procedures. The correct approach involves immediately stopping the incorrect process, identifying the specific instruction that was misunderstood or misapplied, and then correcting the error according to the original instructions. This demonstrates a commitment to accuracy and service quality, which are paramount in postal operations. This approach aligns with the Postal Service's core values of integrity and customer service, ensuring that mail is handled correctly and delivered to the intended recipients. It also reflects a proactive approach to process optimization by learning from mistakes to prevent future occurrences. An incorrect approach of continuing with the incorrect process to meet a deadline fails to uphold the fundamental responsibility of accurate mail handling. This directly violates the implicit trust placed in postal employees to follow instructions precisely, leading to potential misdeliveries, delays, and customer dissatisfaction. It prioritizes speed over accuracy, which is a critical failure in this profession. Another incorrect approach of attempting to correct the error without understanding the original instruction can lead to further mistakes. This demonstrates a lack of attention to detail and a superficial understanding of the task, potentially compounding the initial error and creating new problems. It shows a failure to engage with the process critically and learn from the mistake. A further incorrect approach of blaming external factors or other individuals for the error, rather than taking personal responsibility, undermines accountability. This behavior prevents learning and improvement and erodes trust within the team and with supervisors. It is a failure to adhere to professional standards of conduct and a lack of commitment to personal development. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to accuracy and adherence to instructions as the highest priority. When an error is identified, the immediate step should be to halt the incorrect action, thoroughly review the original instructions to understand the deviation, and then meticulously correct the error. This should be followed by a brief self-reflection to understand how the mistake occurred and what steps can be taken to prevent recurrence. If the error has significant implications, it is also professional to inform a supervisor promptly. Question 13. The risk matrix shows that misremembering verbal delivery instructions poses a moderate risk to timely service. A supervisor provides a postal service employee with a multi-step set of instructions for a special delivery route, including specific drop-off times, recipient signatures required, and a package to be returned to the post office. Which of the following represents the most effective approach to ensure accurate recall and execution of these instructions? Option A. Act on the first instruction immediately and recall the rest as they become relevant during the route. Option B. Listen attentively to all instructions, mentally rehearse them in sequence, and briefly summarize them internally before beginning the route. Option C. Rely on a general understanding of the instructions and assume the details will be remembered as the route progresses. Option D. Focus only on the most critical instruction and assume the less important ones can be inferred. The correct answer is B. Listen attentively to all instructions, mentally rehearse them in sequence, and briefly summarize them internally before beginning the route. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the Postal Service employee to accurately recall and execute a series of verbal instructions under pressure, directly impacting service delivery and customer satisfaction. The core of the challenge lies in auditory memory, a critical skill for tasks involving detailed directives. Careful judgment is required to ensure all instructions are followed precisely, preventing errors that could lead to misdelivered mail, missed pickups, or other operational inefficiencies. The correct approach involves actively listening, mentally rehearsing the instructions, and confirming understanding through a brief, internal or external, summary before proceeding. This method leverages best practices in auditory memory retention, by engaging multiple cognitive processes. Specifically, it aligns with the Postal Service's operational guidelines, which implicitly require accuracy and adherence to procedures, ensuring that all tasks are performed as directed to maintain service integrity. This proactive engagement with the information minimizes the risk of misinterpretation or omission, directly supporting the Postal Service's commitment to reliable service. An incorrect approach of immediately acting on the first instruction without fully absorbing the subsequent ones is professionally unacceptable. This failure to process the complete set of instructions violates the implicit requirement for thoroughness in task execution. It demonstrates a lack of attention to detail and can lead to incomplete or incorrect service, potentially resulting in customer complaints and operational disruptions, which are contrary to Postal Service standards. Another incorrect approach of relying solely on a vague recollection of the instructions later is also professionally unacceptable. This passive approach to memory recall is unreliable and increases the likelihood of errors. The Postal Service operates on a foundation of clear procedures and accurate execution. Relying on a potentially flawed memory without any immediate confirmation or note-taking falls short of this standard and could lead to significant service failures. A third incorrect approach of assuming the instructions are straightforward and not requiring full attention is professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of respect for the importance of detailed directives and can lead to overlooking critical nuances. Such an attitude can result in errors that compromise service quality and efficiency, undermining the operational integrity expected of Postal Service employees. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a conscious effort to engage actively with all verbal information received. This includes dedicating full attention, mentally or physically noting key details, and seeking clarification if any part of the instruction is unclear. Before commencing any task based on verbal instructions, a brief mental review or confirmation of understanding ensures all directives have been processed accurately, thereby upholding operational standards and service quality. Question 14. The evaluation methodology shows that a mail piece is addressed to 123 Main Street Apt 4B, Anytown, Con 90210. Which of the following accurately identifies all the essential address components present for effective mail processing according to Postal Service Exam 473 guidelines? Option A. Street number, street name, suffix, city, state, zip code. Option B. Street number, street name, city, state, zip code. Option C. Street number, street name, apartment/unit number, city, state, zip code. Option D. Street number, street name, apartment/unit number, city, state. The correct answer is C. Street number, street name, apartment/unit number, city, state, zip code. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires meticulous attention to detail in a high-volume environment where errors can lead to significant delivery failures and customer dissatisfaction. The Postal Service Exam 473, while not explicitly detailing specific regulations beyond its own operational guidelines, implicitly emphasizes accuracy and adherence to established address formatting standards for efficient mail processing. The core challenge lies in correctly identifying and applying all necessary address components as defined by Postal Service best practices, which are designed to ensure deliverability. The correct approach involves accurately identifying and transcribing all essential address components: street number, street name, suffix, apartment/unit number, if applicable, city, state, and ZIP code. This is the correct professional practice because it directly aligns with the fundamental purpose of the Postal Service: to deliver mail to the intended recipient. Each component serves a distinct and critical role in the sorting and delivery process. The street number and name, along with the city, state, and ZIP code, form the primary geographic locator. The suffix clarifies the type of street, e.g., street, avenue, road, and the apartment/unit number provides the specific destination within a multi-unit building. Adherence to these components ensures that mail can be efficiently routed and delivered without ambiguity, minimizing delays and misdeliveries. This is ethically and professionally sound, as it upholds the service's commitment to reliability and customer trust. An incorrect approach that omits the apartment/unit number when present is professionally unacceptable, because it directly violates the principle of complete address information necessary for accurate delivery. This failure can lead to the mail being undeliverable, returned to sender, or delivered to the wrong location within the building, causing inconvenience and potential loss for the recipient. Another incorrect approach that misinterprets or incorrectly transcribes the street suffix, e.g., writing "cent" instead of "street" when the standard requires the full word, can cause confusion in automated sorting systems, and for human sorters, increasing the risk of misrouting. Similarly, an incorrect city or ZIP code, even with a correct street address, will prevent the mail from reaching the correct postal facility, rendering the entire address ineffective. These failures represent a dereliction of duty to ensure accurate mail handling and can erode public confidence in the postal service. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of each address element against established postal service guidelines. This includes a mental checklist of all required components and a verification step to ensure accuracy and completeness. When in doubt about any component, especially those that are handwritten or appear ambiguous, a professional should consult available resources or seek clarification rather than making an assumption that could lead to an error. The focus must always be on ensuring the integrity of the address for successful delivery. Question 15. Strategic planning requires a thorough understanding and precise execution of multi-step instructions. Imagine you are a postal employee tasked with processing a special shipment that involves several distinct stages. First, verifying the sender's identification against a digital manifest. Second, applying a specific tamper-evident seal in a designated location. Third, scanning the package into a secondary tracking system. And finally, placing it in a designated secure holding area. Which of the following approaches best reflects the required professional execution of these instructions? Option A. Applying the tamper-evident seal immediately upon receiving the package to expedite the process. Option B. Skipping the secondary tracking scan if the initial manifest verification seems sufficient. Option C. Performing the steps in the order that seems most efficient, combining verification and scanning if possible. Option D. Reviewing all steps to ensure comprehension, then executing each step sequentially and verifying completion before moving to the next. The correct answer is D. Reviewing all steps to ensure comprehension, then executing each step sequentially and verifying completion before moving to the next. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a critical multi-step instruction set with a direct impact on service delivery and customer trust. The Postal Service Exam 473, while not explicitly detailing specific regulations for every operational nuance, operates under a framework that prioritizes accuracy, efficiency, and adherence to established procedures. Failure to follow complex instructions precisely can lead to misdelivered mail, delayed packages, and potential security breaches, all of which erode public confidence and violate the implicit trust placed in postal services. Careful judgment is required to interpret and execute each step accurately, especially when faced with potential ambiguities or minor deviations from the norm. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing each step of the provided instructions, understanding its purpose, and executing it in the specified sequence. This demonstrates a commitment to procedural integrity, a core tenet of postal operations. By breaking down the complex instruction into manageable parts and confirming understanding before proceeding, the individual ensures that all requirements are met. This methodical approach aligns with the Postal Service's operational guidelines, which emphasize accuracy and thoroughness in handling mail and packages. The regulatory framework, though broad, implicitly supports such diligence to maintain service standards and prevent errors. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that involves skipping steps or performing them out of order is a direct violation of procedural adherence. This can lead to critical errors, such as misrouting mail or failing to complete necessary documentation, which are unacceptable under Postal Service operational standards. This disregard for sequence and completeness undermines the reliability of the postal system. Another incorrect approach is to make assumptions about the instructions or to interpret them loosely based on past experience. While experience is valuable, complex instructions are often designed with specific nuances that must be followed precisely. Making assumptions bypasses the explicit guidance provided, potentially leading to errors that could have been avoided by simply following the instructions as written. This deviates from the principle of following established protocols designed to ensure consistent and accurate service. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize speed over accuracy when executing the instructions. While efficiency is important, it should never come at the expense of correctly completing each step. Rushing through the process increases the likelihood of mistakes, which can have significant negative consequences for both the sender and the recipient, and ultimately for the Postal Service's reputation. This approach fails to uphold the standard of care expected in handling mail. Professional reasoning. Professionals in postal services must adopt a systematic approach to complex instructions. This involves active reading and comprehension of each step, seeking clarification if any part is unclear, and executing each step in the prescribed order. A mental checklist or a physical annotation of completed steps can be beneficial. The decision-making process should prioritize accuracy and completeness over speed, recognizing that errors in postal operations can have far-reaching consequences. When in doubt, it is always better to pause and confirm understanding than to proceed with a potential mistake. Question 16. Cost-benefit analysis shows that investing in clear communication protocols significantly reduces operational errors. A supervisor verbally instructs a postal employee to take that package to the back sorting area, the one with the red tag. The employee has observed multiple packages with red tags in different areas. Which of the following actions best demonstrates an understanding of interpreting verbal instructions in a professional postal environment? Option A. Ask the supervisor for clarification, stating, "Could you please specify which red tag package you mean, or which specific back sorting area?" Option B. Take a random red-tagged package to a general sorting area, assuming the supervisor will correct it if it's wrong. Option C. Wait for the supervisor to repeat the instruction, hoping they will provide more detail. Option D. Proceed to the nearest sorting area and place a package with a red tag there, assuming the supervisor meant the closest one. The correct answer is D. Proceed to the nearest sorting area and place a package with a red tag there, assuming the supervisor meant the closest one. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an employee to accurately interpret and act upon verbal instructions in a dynamic work environment, where misinterpretation can lead to errors, inefficiencies, and potential safety hazards. The Postal Service Exam 473, while not explicitly detailing specific USPS regulations for interpreting verbal instructions, operates under a framework that prioritizes accuracy, efficiency, and adherence to established procedures. The core challenge lies in bridging the gap between spoken words and the required action, ensuring that the intent of the instruction is fully understood and executed correctly. Careful judgment is required to identify potential ambiguities, seek clarification when necessary, and confirm understanding before proceeding. The correct approach involves actively listening, seeking clarification for any ambiguous or incomplete instructions, and confirming understanding by restating the instruction in one's own words before acting. This aligns with the USP's implicit requirement for operational accuracy and efficiency. By seeking clarification and confirming understanding, the employee demonstrates a commitment to performing their duties correctly and avoiding errors that could impact service delivery or operational flow. This proactive communication minimizes the risk of misinterpretation and ensures that actions taken are aligned with the supervisor's intent and established postal procedures. An incorrect approach of assuming understanding and proceeding without confirmation is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes the implicit expectation of accuracy and diligence in postal operations. It can lead to incorrect sorting, misdelivery, or other service failures, which are detrimental to the Postal Service's reputation and operational integrity. Another incorrect approach of acting solely on the initial spoken words without considering context or potential for misinterpretation also presents a significant risk. Verbal communication can be prone to background noise, mumbling, or incomplete sentences, and a failure to account for these factors can result in significant errors. Furthermore, an approach that involves guessing the intent of the instruction is highly unprofessional and dangerous, as it introduces a high probability of error and can lead to unsafe practices or incorrect handling of mail. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes clear communication and verification. This involves 1. Active listening, paying full attention to the speaker, noting key details, and identifying any potential areas of confusion. 2. Clarification seeking. If any part of the instruction is unclear, incomplete, or seems contradictory, politely asking clarifying questions. Examples include asking for repetition, specific details, or confirmation of understanding. 3. Confirmation of understanding. restating the instruction in one's own words to ensure alignment with the speaker's intent. This can be phrased as, "So, if I understand correctly, you want me to." 4. Action based on verified understanding. Proceeding with the task only after confirming that the instruction has been fully and accurately understood. Question 17. The evaluation methodology shows that the Postal Service Exam 473E includes a visual memory component designed to assess a candidate's ability to recall specific visual details from a simulated delivery scenario. Which of the following approaches best demonstrates the required visual memory skills for this examination? Option A. Attempting to memorize a large number of arbitrary visual details without considering their relevance to the delivery tasks. Option B. Relying on general assumptions about typical delivery locations and mail characteristics rather than specific visual information presented. Option C. Focusing only on the most obvious visual elements and disregarding subtle but potentially important details. Option D. Actively observing and mentally cataloging distinctive visual features of addresses, mail items, and environmental cues encountered during the simulated route to aid recall. The correct answer is D. Actively observing and mentally cataloging distinctive visual features of addresses, mail items, and environmental cues encountered during the simulated route to aid recall. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows that the Postal Service Exam 473E assesses visual memory through tasks that require remembering specific visual cues and patterns encountered during simulated delivery routes. This scenario is professionally challenging because effective visual memory is crucial for accurate mail sorting, efficient route navigation, and identifying potential security risks or anomalies. A postal employee's ability to recall visual details, such as the unique characteristics of a delivery location or the placement of mail within a bag, directly impacts service quality and operational efficiency. Failure in this area can lead to misdelivered mail, delays, and increased operational costs. The correct approach involves diligently observing and mentally cataloging the visual information presented during the simulated route, focusing on distinctive features of addresses, mail items, and environmental cues. This aligns with the implicit requirements of postal operations, which necessitate a high degree of accuracy and attention to detail. While the Postal Service Exam 473E does not cite specific external regulations for visual memory, the underlying principle is to ensure that candidates possess the cognitive skills essential for performing job duties safely and effectively, as mandated by internal USP's operational guidelines and performance standards. Ability to recall visual patterns is a direct measure of a candidate's suitability for tasks requiring spatial awareness and detailed observation. An incorrect approach would be to rely solely on rote memorization without understanding the context or significance of the visual cues. This might involve trying to memorize arbitrary details that are unlikely to be relevant in a real-world scenario, or conversely, ignoring subtle but important visual distinctions. Another incorrect approach would be to guess or make assumptions based on incomplete visual information, which directly contradicts the need for accuracy in mail handling and delivery. Such an approach would fail to demonstrate the required level of observational skill and attention to detail, leading to potential errors in judgment and performance, and thus failing to meet the standards expected of a postal employee. Professionals should approach visual memory tasks by actively engaging with the visual information, seeking to understand its relevance to the task at hand. This involves a conscious effort to identify and encode key visual features, practice recall techniques, and self-assess understanding. In the context of the exam, this means treating each visual element as potentially important and developing a systematic method for processing and retaining this information. Question 18. Process analysis reveals that postal employees often encounter mail with varying levels of importance and potential long-term significance. Considering the need to retain information for both short-term operational needs and long-term legal or investigative purposes, which of the following represents the most appropriate approach to managing mail that may require extended retention? Option A. Establish clear criteria for identifying mail requiring extended retention based on content and type, and adhere strictly to established Postal Service guidelines for its storage and eventual disposition. Option B. Discard all mail that appears routine after a brief holding period, prioritizing immediate processing efficiency over potential future needs. Option C. Retain all mail indefinitely to to ensure no important document is ever lost, regardless of operational impact. Option D. Implement a standardized retention policy for all mail, discarding items after a predetermined short period, unless explicitly marked for special handling. The correct answer is D. Implement a standardized retention policy for all mail, discarding items after a predetermined short period, unless explicitly marked for special handling. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a postal employee to balance the immediate need for efficient mail processing with the long-term legal and operational requirements for retaining specific types of mail. Misjudging the retention period for a piece of mail could lead to regulatory violations, loss of critical evidence, or operational inefficiencies. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between routine mail and items that necessitate longer retention based on their content and potential significance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves accurately identifying mail that requires extended retention based on its content, and then following established postal service procedures for its storage and eventual disposition. This aligns with the Postal Service's obligation to maintain records and evidence as mandated by internal policies and potentially external legal requirements. Proper retention ensures that important documents are available when needed for investigations, audits, or legal proceedings, thereby upholding the integrity and accountability of postal operations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to discard all mail after a minimal period, regardless of its content. This fails to acknowledge that certain mail items, such as those containing legal notices, financial instruments, or evidence of criminal activity, may have specific retention requirements. Discarding such items prematurely would violate regulatory frameworks governing evidence preservation and could have severe legal repercussions for the Postal Service and individuals involved. Another incorrect approach is to retain all mail indefinitely. Seemingly cautious, this is operationally unsustainable and inefficient. It would lead to excessive storage costs, difficulty in retrieving specific documents, and potential clutter that hinders daily operations. Furthermore, indefinite retention of non-essential mail may also conflict with data privacy regulations or internal policies that specify disposal schedules for routine correspondence. A third incorrect approach is to make retention decisions based on subjective criteria or personal judgment without consulting established guidelines. This introduces inconsistency and bias into the retention process. Without a standardized procedure, mail that should be retained might be discarded, and mail that should be disposed of might be kept unnecessarily, leading to both regulatory noncompliance and operational inefficiencies. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should develop a systematic approach to mail handling that prioritizes accurate identification of mail requiring special attention. This involves understanding the types of mail that have specific retention requirements, such as legal documents, registered mail with declared value, or items flagged for investigation. When in doubt, consulting the Postal Service's official manual or a supervisor is crucial. The decision-making process should be guided by established protocols, ensuring that information is retained for the appropriate duration to meet legal, operational, and accountability standards. Question 19. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a postal employee has received a delivery instruction for a package that reads, "Leave at rear door if no answer. If dog present, place package behind largest bush." The employee arrives at the address and finds no one home. They observe a dog in the yard. Which of the following actions best interprets and follows the written instructions? Option A. Knock on the neighbor's door to ask them to accept the package. Option B. Leave the package at the front door as it is the most visible location. Option C. Return the package to the post office for a second delivery attempt. Option D. Place the package behind the largest bush in the yard as a dog is present. The correct answer is B. Leave the package at the front door as it is the most visible location. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a postal employee to accurately interpret and apply written instructions that have direct implications for service delivery and potentially customer satisfaction. The core of the challenge lies in understanding the nuances of the instructions, recognizing potential ambiguities, and choosing the most appropriate course of action based on the explicit directives provided, all within the operational framework of the Postal Service. Careful judgment is required to avoid errors that could lead to misdeliveries, delays, or customer complaints, which are all detrimental to the Postal Service's reputation and efficiency. The correct approach involves carefully reading and understanding the written instructions, identifying the specific action required, and then executing that action precisely as directed. This demonstrates a commitment to following established procedures and guidelines, which is a fundamental requirement for all Postal Service employees. Adhering strictly to written instructions ensures consistency in service delivery, minimizes the risk of errors, and upholds the integrity of the mail system. This aligns with the Postal Service's operational standards and the expectation that employees will perform their duties diligently and accurately based on provided directives. An incorrect approach that involves making assumptions about the instructions is professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge the importance of explicit written directives and introduces a high risk of misinterpretation. The Postal Service relies on clear, written instructions to maintain operational efficiency and customer trust. Deviating from these instructions based on personal assumptions undermines these principles and can lead to service failures. Another incorrect approach that involves seeking clarification from a colleague without first attempting to understand the instructions independently is also professionally flawed. While seeking clarification is sometimes necessary, doing so without a genuine effort to interpret the instructions first suggests a lack of initiative and a potential unwillingness to engage with the provided information. This can slow down operations and may not always lead to the most accurate understanding if the colleague also misinterprets the instructions. Finally, an incorrect approach that involves disregarding the instructions because they seem inconvenient is a severe professional failure. This demonstrates a disregard for authority, established procedures, and the importance of fulfilling assigned tasks. Such behavior can have significant negative consequences for service delivery, customer satisfaction, and the overall operational integrity of the Postal Service. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, thoroughly read and comprehend the written instructions. If the instructions are clear, execute them precisely. If there is any ambiguity or uncertainty after a diligent attempt at interpretation, then seek clarification from the appropriate supervisor or designated authority. Never proceed with an action based on assumption or disregard instructions due to perceived inconvenience. Question 20. The assessment process reveals a postal employee attempting to process a mail piece that has been returned by the recipient with a note stating moved, left no forwarding address. Which address correction code as defined by Postal Service regulation should the employee apply to accurately reflect this situation and ensure proper mail handling? Option A, moved, left no address. Option B, undeliverable as addressed. Option C, forwarding expired. Option D, return to sender. The correct answer is C, forwarding expired. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a scenario where a postal employee encounters an undeliverable mail piece with an incomplete address. This situation is professionally challenging because it requires the employee to apply knowledge of specific postal regulations regarding address correction, ensuring mail is delivered efficiently and accurately while adhering to established procedures. Misinterpreting or misapplying these codes can lead to mail delays, increased operational costs for the Postal Service, and customer dissatisfaction. Careful judgment is required to select the correct code that accurately reflects the reason for non-delivery and the appropriate action to be taken. The correct approach involves accurately identifying the reason the mail piece is undeliverable and applying the corresponding official Postal Service address correction code. This ensures that the mail piece is processed according to established procedures, either by attempting delivery to a corrected address, returning it to the sender, or forwarding it if applicable. This adherence to the official coding system is mandated by Postal Service regulations, such as those found in the Domestic Mail Manual, DMM, which provides the definitive guidelines for mail handling and address correction. Using the correct code is essential for maintaining the integrity of the mail stream and for the Postal Service to track and manage undeliverable mail effectively. An incorrect approach would be to guess at a code or to use a code that does not precisely match the reason for non-delivery. For example, applying a forwarding expired code when the mail piece was actually addressed to a vacant building represents a failure to comply with DMM regulations. This misapplication can lead to mail being sent to an incorrect destination or being returned unnecessarily, both of which are inefficient and costly. Another incorrect approach would be to simply discard the mail piece without attempting any form of correction or return, which is a direct violation of postal regulations and ethical responsibilities to deliver mail or return it to the sender. Failing to consult the DMM or other official postal service resources when unsure about the correct code also constitutes a regulatory failure, as it demonstrates a lack of diligence in applying established procedures. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes accuracy and regulatory compliance. When faced with an undeliverable mail piece, the first step is to carefully examine the address and the reason for non-delivery. If the reason is not immediately obvious, or if there is any doubt about the correct procedure, the employee should consult the official Postal Service Domestic Mail Manual, DMM, or other authorized reference materials. The DMM provides specific codes and instructions for various address correction scenarios. The employee should then select the code that most accurately reflects the situation and follow the associated instructions for handling the mail piece. If further clarification is needed, seeking guidance from a supervisor or designated postal authority is the appropriate professional action.